and he sees a fig tree. And the fig tree is loaded with leaves. Now, in that part of the world, whenever you have leaves on a fig tree, it meant that the figs were ripe. Because in that part of the world, the figs come before the leaves. The leaves actually are provided by nature to cover the figs after they ripen. So when Jesus saw a very leafy fig tree, he goes to the fig tree looking for fruit and finds nothing but leaves. And he curses the tree. Well, why would he curse the tree when the Bible tells us the time of figs was not yet? Now, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. The Bible said the time of figs was not yet, but yet it said the tree had leaves, but it wasn't supposed to have leaves unless it had figs. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, that doesn't really make sense, does it? You know how the Bible talks kind of funny sometimes, right? Come on, give me a little energy here. See, it said, here's what it said. It said the time of figs was not yet, but there were leaves on the tree. And we know there shouldn't have been leaves if there were no figs. And he cursed the tree. Well, why did he curse the tree? Why would God curse a tree? I mean, poems are made by fools like me. But only God can make a tree. Why would he curse the tree? You know why? It was no ordinary tree. Do you remember in the Garden of Eden, you had two trees, right? Really, you had three. You had the tree of knowledge, you had the tree of life, and then you had a fig tree. Because the Bible said when Adam and Eve sinned and their eyes were open and they saw they were naked, the Bible said they took leaves from the fig tree and made aprons for themselves. Now, every apron I've ever seen covers up the front, but the back is still out. In order to hide for their sins, they covered themselves with fig leaves. Was the initial and original covering for fallen man. Jesus, who has come to die for man and is scheduled to do so in about 5 days, is on his way to the cross, and what steps in his way but a fig tree? And no ordinary fig tree, a tree with nothing but leaves. You ain't feeling me yet. You ain't feeling me yet. The same tree that was in Genesis shows up in Matthew. You ain't feeling me yet. You ain't feeling me yet. See, God does that kind of stuff. Elijah is in 1 Kings, but you know he didn't die. Bible said a chariot picked him up, took him to heaven. He shows back up in the 4 Gospels talking to Jesus at the Mount of Transfiguration. 2,000 years later, then he shows up again in the book of Revelation as one of 2 witnesses. You ain't feeling me yet. Moses. Remember Moses, the Bible said Moses died, but it didn't tell us where. Then it didn't tell us where he was buried. Then we see Moses with Elijah and Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration in the book of Luke. Then we see Moses again in Revelation as one of the 2 witnesses. You still ain't feeling me right. The dove. Noah wants to make sure that there's dry land. He sends one dove out, he comes back. A few days later, he sends another dove out, never comes back. When Jesus is baptized, here comes the dove. Same dove has moved from Genesis to Matthew. Fig tree, nothing but leaves. The same tree that was in Genesis shows up in Matthew and says to Jesus, where you going? You don't have to die. Your blood is not necessary. Get some of my leaves. You said, but how did the tree know that? Remember when they made aprons out of the fig leaves? God came down and conferenced with Adam and Eve. He said, I'm going to talk to y'all. He said, what in the world is that y'all got on? We got some fig leaves on. God said, no, that won't do. God butchered an animal, shed his blood, and put the skin of that bloody animal on Adam and Eve. What do you think is going to happen at the cross? Jesus. Blood is going to be shed in an effort to save man. The tree said to Jesus, where are you going? I already, look, let's put up a little conversation between the two of them, okay? The tree said to Jesus, I served you before. I'm willing to serve you again. I was original covering. I will be covering again. You ain't got to die for nobody. As a matter of fact, I am full of leaves. How many bodies you need to cover? That's why he cursed the tree. Because the tree was trying to interrupt the will of God. And when that tree presented itself and said, I'll do it, you don't have to, Jesus said, you are cursed to the root. You know why? Because our righteousness is not enough to justify us before God.